here from the back? Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming. This is a great turnout. I have a couple announcements to make. They'll be quick before I introduce the Divas. The first one, I wanted to thank the unofficial Friends of the Rideau Lakes Public Library. They are the group that baked and provided us with the treats today. So, and the lead into that is that we're looking for friends. It's a big push. More friends. Well, this is good. The Rideau Lakes, this is our first, this will be the first Friends of the Library. So, Joanne, over here, is, I guess, it's going to be at the back corner at the end of the presentation. There's going to be a quick meeting, I believe, and some, hopefully people sign up with their contact information, and then finally we will have a friends group. And I don't know exactly when the first meeting is.
Well, we're hoping for June 18th at 2 o'clock.
And what location?
That's a good question.
Okay.
We have to determine that.
Okay, so we'll determine it soon.
Yes.
Christine, what is the role of members of Friends?
That's all going to be discussed at the end of this session.
Okay.
I will give a 5-minute talk, maybe a bit more, not much more than that, and then I'll explain what the point of the Friends group is, purpose, and then Yvonne will give a bit of information about what it is the library would like the Friends to do.
Great.
Okay?
And I think it's pretty flexible as far as how much commitment you want to put in or is needed. So hopefully some people think about joining. That'd be great. And right now, I know most of you are probably part of book club. We have 12 working from this library, so it's a huge group. And there has been demand to start another one in Elgin. So if you're not part of the book club and you don't mind driving to Elgin, if you could just contact us and we'll get you guys together. So I'm so excited to have the Divas here today. Probably the last time that you were at the library, you actually gave a session at the library conference. I came in and they just make working at the library a really easy job because they do so much reading and pick the best that they've read. And I have never read a book that I wasn't happy with from your pick. So thank you very much for coming all this way. I think you both came from Toronto. So today we have Andrea Cahoon, and from Penguin, and Laurie and Troy from Random House. So thank you.
You actually have people from the same company that I'm on the Penguin side. Just a couple of things to note. We did bring what we call ARCs, which are advanced reading copies. And if you wanted to go through them after we talk, you might find some gems in there. Now, with arts, you cannot put them in libraries or any collections or anything like that. This is the personal use. Basically, to read before the book might have already come out. And please take as many as you want. We're not taking any with us when we go. Anything else that you want to add? So I can go right into it. Okay, so I was really pleased to hear that I actually do a brand new so there's some music somewhere.
Oh, that's great. Oh, sorry.
A brand new presentation, because I've been doing the same one for a while, because you do it for a few months, and I'm like, I get to do book clubs. So it was wonderful actually going through and picking the books that I think would be the best book club picks of the books that I've read in the last little while. So some of these have been in hardcover and now coming out in trade that I thought I would mention. And some of them are original, and I think there's one or two that are just coming out. But the first one is Minister Without Portfolio from Michael Winter. Michael Winter is a Canadian author, and he's really actually becoming quite up there. He actually went on a tour with Joseph Boyd which I hear was a lot of fun. They actually did the campaign together with our publicist, Michael. But Michael is absolutely fantastic writer, and he is definitely one of the up and coming. This is actually set in the East Coast, where he actually does live most of the time. And it is about Henry, Henry is, one of those guys who never really grows up. He never really takes responsibilities for his own actions. He doesn't actually, really take that responsibility factor. I would call this you have that as coming of age novels. This is really becoming a man. This is Henry actually really truly starting to learn that he has to take responsibility for his actions and for other people's actions. And that's what the title means, as Minister without Portfolio. He has come back from Afghanistan. He was working as a civilian in Afghanistan. And due to something that he likely might have done, one of his friends died. And he's feeling slightly guilty about this, and he ends up, he just can't do it anymore. So he goes back to where he lives, and he ends up actually fixing up this friend's house, cottage, out in the middle of nowhere. And it's, there's a lot of handyman tips in here. He also ends up in a relationship with the friend's girlfriend who is pregnant. It's a very, very interesting read. It's one that there'll be a lot of talking points to it, because the whole idea of becoming a man and being responsible for the people around you, being responsible for the community, and how responsible are we, is really the main theme in this book. I have to say that it is, I would call it literary fiction, but it's definitely a very readable literary fiction. And he is definitely a fantastic author, even going back to his other ones. And he does have a new one coming out by Random House Nonfiction that I'm sure is also going to be fantastic, that for some reason I don't get to sell. And the second book, I've just been told about it, which is coming out this fall, and I'm still waiting desperately for the manuscript to RC, something to give me to read. This is set in 2059. Paige is the main character, and Paige works for basically the mafia in London, England. She basically works for the mafia. She's a dream catcher, and she does nefarious things for the mafia in London during that time period. Then she ends up getting caught. Dream catchers are very, very bad. Everybody is trying to find all the dream catchers. But she gets caught, and they send her to jail. Except for jail in this case, nobody knows this, but jail in this case is actually Oxford. So her in jail is in Oxford, and it's actually the people who run this area are aliens. It's an alien race called the Refugees, I think they're called. And she ends up being a slave to Warden. So there is that little bit of Warden in there. But she discovers that Warden might be trying to overthrow the alien race in there. She's going to do everything in her power to get back home. So that's kind of where that starts off. She's an amazing author who has basically made her own words to go with this, and made up a lot of words and a lot of language for this series. When you're talking about aliens, I want to mention it really doesn't feel like you're talking about aliens. It's definitely more a great fiction read. It does have, as I said, a little bit of romance, but it is not, as Ben and Allie's was a girly book, it is not a girly book at all whatsoever. She had amazing reviews for this book, and as I said, the second one is coming up, and I'm really looking forward to this. The Girl You Left Behind, Jojo Moyes. This is actually set in two different time periods. The first one is Paris in 1916, and it's all around Sophia, who is trying to keep her family together, trying to keep the community together when the Nazis have actually run over her village. Sophia's husband, who is an artist, has, of course, gone to war. And the one thing she has is a painting that he painted of her before she left. And when a soldier, very high-ranking soldier, sees this painting, he becomes obsessed with it. debt, not really willing to deal with the real world. And one of the best things about that, I think, is that she lives in a glass house, a circular glass house, which I thought, the whole house aspect of it is actually quite interesting in itself. But her husband is an architect, which is why she lives in a gorgeous house, that she might be losing. But the one thing that she does have is a picture of Sophia from, that he gave to her for their wedding. And so she does have this picture. Very chance incident. Somebody sees the picture and recognizes it, and now the people who think it's theirs, her ancestors, want this picture back. So it does talk a lot about the aspect of after war and people losing their stuff and all of the lawyers and everything trying to get this back. It's a very big business at the time of people doing that, and a lot of it is like, oh, it's so sentimental, and it's because, it's very sentimental, but then what they do is when they finally get it, they actually sell it for a lot of money, and it definitely is a big business, and that is definitely what is happening in this case. And Liv has decided that she is not going to give up. She is going to keep Sophia alive through this picture, and she is determined to give Sophia the voice that she deserves. It's a very interesting look at it because it is from two different sides. That their lawyer involved is a slight love interest to Liv, I'm going to mention. So there is that bit, but it really is talking about the whole aspect of the treasures after war and dealing with the death of husbands and what we do to survive.
And unlike Andrea, who shows some restraint and only puts 10 books under this, but don't be scared. I'm not going to talk about all of those books. A lot of them are just kind of suggestions, because at this point in the season, I just have to tell everyone about all the books I've loved in the whole last year. So you're just kind of on the hook for that. Anyhow, I'm starting off with How Cameron's The Bear, and it's a bit of a contrarian because this is a book that not everybody likes. And the people who like it quite like it, the people who don't quite don't like it. And so it's kind of interesting sometimes to look at a book that falls into this category. A number of years ago, Claire worked in Algonquin Provincial Park, and during her time there, a couple of hikers were attacked and killed by a black bear. And she has reimagined this as an attack on a family with preschool children who are camping on an island in the park. And the story is narrated by their 5-year-old daughter, Anna. So the whole thing is told from a 5-year-old's point of view. And one of the daring things about a child as a narrator is that you have that naive point of view, things that the child is reporting, because the child is just going to be kind of like a movie camera. The things that the child can see but doesn't understand, that to, of course, an adult reader are quite different. So you have the family out on the island, and suddenly the dad throws her and her brother into Coleman, this large metal cooler, and kind of props it up a bit, just to stay here, don't leave under any circumstances. And so you have a sense of what might be coming. You understand that the smelly black dog that's snuffling around the cooler may not be a dog. And eventually, when Anna makes her way out of the cooler and finds her mother, who has been terribly mauled, and the mother just says, they're on an island, get back to the shore. And their little brother's only 2.5. She doesn't understand why her mother isn't more playful. And so, this portion of what was on for about 40 pages, and if you have any nervousness about bears for a parent, it's pretty heartrending. Anyhow, and then the story goes on and just kind of unfolds. It's all told from Anna's point of view. And a lot of the questions revolve around whether Anna is credible as a 5-year-old or not. Because either you will love her voice and her way of understanding the world and explicating it, or you will not. And so, in a lot of book club books, because usually you pick good books, and everyone will go around the circle saying, I loved it. Silence. Now let's eat. This is the kind of book I think that people probably will have mixed feelings about and actually debate a little bit. So there is lots to discuss. Perhaps you should not read it before going camping. Fancy houses. But the land is disputed. It's part of the Grand River Preserve, basically. And so up go the barricades and sort of the she does such a good job of drawing ordinary people. And it's one of these where no matter who is speaking, you sympathize with their point of view, even though it may be contradicted a few pages later by a different point of view. Regardless of which side people are on, they're not all wonderful, they're not all despicable. It just kind of warts them all. It's just a really interesting, and it's just really well drawn look at how people behave and how people react when things that are dear to them are threatened. And so it's first novel, extremely well written, and for me, sort of a connection to the land that everybody has. And this isn't just crass commercialism or the desire to exploit or get something back. That's really what informs the whole story. And then Wake is another debut novel. Most of us have noticed by now that this is the 100th anniversary of the start of World War I, so there will be all kinds of books pertaining to World War I. This is actually set in the years following the war, early 1920s, and it contains 4 separate narratives that ultimately are threaded together, and a lot of the joy of reading the book is figuring out who is who in the other stories, or you see a character in one of the narratives who appears in a different, or appears in the other stories as well. So it opens with a military detail. They're out in the battlefields of France, and they're trying to find the remains of a soldier that are completely unidentifiable, because they're looking for the unknown soldier who will be taken back to Westminster Abbey and buried. So that's one of the storylines. And then there are 3 women. Hetty is a dancer for hire at sort of the dance halls, and she does this. Her brother has been shell-shocked, so he's been incapacitated by the war. A second woman is Evelyn, and her lover during the war basically vaporized by a shell, and she now makes a living working in the war claims office for pensions for people who've been injured in the war. And then there's Ada, whose son died during the war, but in kind of mysterious and nebulous circumstances, and she is absolutely convinced she sees him still on the street or here and there. One day a young soldier comes trying to sell little bits and bobs to her who knew her son. And so you follow each of these stories in turn, and I guess it sort of points out that a lot of the damage of war, it didn't stop when the shooting stopped. The survivors are the ones who really have to deal with the aftermath. It reminded me a lot of Life After Life, which I've just put on the list because that was probably the best book I read in 2013.
Questions?
What book should you not read before you go camping?
Yes.
There's energy first. Okay. Next one is, what is my favorite book? Lexicon? Lexicon?
The Story Life of A.J. Copley.
Yeah. There you go. There's Lexicon. And who said Story Life? Okay, I have one more. Which was your favorite Diva? Oh, no. I didn't hear that.
Last time.
Okay. Yeah, but if you say my last name, that's the question.
Oh my gosh.
There you go. Thank you very much, guys. So, we still have tons of treats here, so please help yourself. And Joanne will be at the back. Liz said I'm going to get some coffees for her. And also, take a look at the 2 tables. So they have to be gone.
They do.
They have to, they are, these are free books to go home. Free books.
You like to work free?
That are going to help out with the establishment of the Friends Group, and they're Yvonne Helwig, Nancy Sheffield, Peggy, and there's Peggy. I'm sorry, Peggy, your last name, Fletcher. Okay. So anyway, please be sure that I have your email address or your phone number, and I'm going to pass the podium over to Yvonne so that she can tell you what the board's strategic direction is for the next 4 years and the role we see the Friends playing. We didn't want to keep everybody.
I just want to point out that Friends organizations are at arm's length separate from the board. So the Friends, when you get together and elect your executive, you will decide what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. Of course, the board would appreciate being kept in that loop very closely, and there is a real symbiotic relationship between the board and the Friends. Of course, you don't want to be rushing off doing things that in no way are going to be useful for the library or what the board has set itself to accomplish. So you want to kind of stay together on it. And that's why I brought this. Again, there's only 10 copies, but we're just at the point of developing a new strategic plan for the next 4 years. We're unlike some other library systems, we're not going to ask our friends to raise millions of dollars so we can have a new library building. Instead, we're going to have a virtual building, which is one big component of it, of course, is new technologies. Things like 3D printers and putting systems in place that will free up librarians' time to spend more time with you people who are clients of the library. That investment in technology is also a big one. So that's where we need a little hand up from members of the community who would like to see that level of service available to the public. So that's it in a nutshell. There's a couple, you'll see quite clearly, very specifically, a couple of things that we're looking to the Friends to do on that technology side. But as I said at the outset, really it's the Friends group that you'd be financially separate from the board, and because of that, you are also, from a governance perspective, independent of the board. You're raising money on behalf of the library, which you donate to the library for different purposes, but it's your ballgame. So here we go.